Hello students, in commerce now we are going to see unit 8 Sales of Goods Act. For previous lesson we have saw formation of contract of sale, then difference between sale and agreement to sell, then types of goods. Now we are going to see transfer of ownership, conditions and warranties, and the last one is rights of an unpaid seller. So now we are going to see transfer of ownership. So transfer of ownership means it is by which the ownership of a property is transferred from one hand to the another. That is called to be the property which will be transferred from one person to another person. This may includes the purchase of a property, or else assumption of mortgage debt, or else exchange of possession of property, or any other land trust device. So these are all the things which will be transferred from one person to another person is called to be as a transfer of ownership. And also here the property in goods means the ownership of goods, while possession of goods refers to the custody of goods or control over the goods. So these are all about the transfer of ownership. Now we can see the example for transfer of ownership. For example, A may possess a watch. Just because A possesses the watch, he cannot be owner. He might have borrowed the watch from his friend, or he stolen the watch from somebody else. So in this case, he cannot be called to be as a owner. It is important to know the precise moment of time at which the ownership in goods passes from the seller to the buyer. This is all about the transfer of ownership. The next topic is passing of property. Passing of property means the transfer of title of a property is called as a passing of property. So this passing of property is classified into different types. Before that, we can see the passing of property exact meaning. The passing of property means it is a goods which implies the transfer of ownership in the goods which has been provided under the Sale of Goods Act 1930. So this passing of property is one of the important concepts which relates to the contract for sale of goods and also for property. This passing of property is an important aspect which helps to determine the liabilities and the rights of both the buyer as well as the seller. Once a property is passed to the buyer, then the risk in the goods sold is that of the buyer and not the seller. This is all about the passing of property, and this passing of property has classified into three types, that is specific goods, unascertained goods, and goods sent on approval. Under the specified goods, it has classified into first one at the time of contract and the second one beyond the date of contract. Now we are going to see specific goods. Specific goods means these are all the goods which is specifically identified at the time a contract of sale is made. For example, a shirt made of cotton and with a Mickey Mouse cartoon on it. If the good is not so identified, the contract is for sale is of unascertained goods. So this is the exact meaning of specified goods. And under the specific goods, the first point is at the time of contract. At the time of contract means when there is an unconditional contract for the sale of specific goods in a deliverable state, ownership in the goods, they will be passed to the buyer when the contract is made. The time of payment of price or the time of delivery of goods is immaterial in the matter of transferring the ownership of the goods. For example, B selects a certain books in a bookshop. The price is settled. So B arranges to take delivery of books next day through his servant and agrees to pay for the books on the 1st of next month. So the books were destroyed by fire in the same evening. In this case, B has to bear the loss and he has to pay for the books selected since the ownership has already passing on to B. So B is responsible to bear all the losses which he has to face. So this is all about the at the time of contract. And the second one is beyond the date of contract. Beyond the date of contract is classified into two. Under this, the first point is goods not in a deliverable state, and the other one is when the price of goods is to be ascertained by weighing or testing or doing something. Now we are going to see goods not in a deliverable state. That means where there is a contract for sale of specific goods not in a deliverable condition. That is, the seller, he has to do certain activities to bring the goods into a deliverable condition condition like painting, then quality checking, then weighing, etc. Then the ownership does not pass till such activities bringing them into a deliverable condition are completed. So for example, there was a contract for a sale of machine which is weighing 30 tons and installed in a concrete floor. Some parts of the machine were damaged during the process of removal. In this case, the buyer is entitled to refuse to buy the machine as it is not in a deliverable condition. So this is all about the goods not in a deliverable state. The next point is when the price of goods is to be ascertained by weighing or testing or doing something. Here, when there is a contract for the sale of specific goods in a deliverable condition, but the seller is yet to weigh, measure, test or do some other act or think with reference to the goods for the purpose of fixing the price, then the ownership in the goods, they will be passed to the buyer only after such activities are carried out and completed and the buyer has a knowledge of it. So for example, A sold some quantity of wheat to B at the rate of rupees 10 per kilo. However, A had to weigh the wheat in order to know the price of the entire quantity of wheat sold to B. In this case, the ownership of the wheat shall transfer to B as soon as A weighs the wheat. B becomes the comes to know about the completion of the weighing activity. So there should not be any doubt or there should not be any cheatings under this contract. Thus, it is necessary that the goods to be ascertained by weighing or testing or doing something for the reference. And the next thing is unascertained goods. Unascertained goods means, as already we studied, that the unascertained goods are those which are not specifically identified at the time of contract of sale. Here the ownership in the case of unascertained goods is transferred to the buyer subject to the fulfillment of following conditions. That is when the goods are ascertained, then when the goods are appropriated to the contract, then the delivery to the carrier. So these are the following conditions. Before that, we can see one of the examples for unascertained goods. For example, in a contract for the sale of 100 pieces of chair, the seller has to deliver 100 pieces of chairs that answers the contract description. This is the exact example for the unascertained goods. So here some of the conditions we have saw. The first condition is when the goods are ascertained. So here ascertainment is a process by which the goods have to be delivered under the contract of sale are identified and set apart. It is a unilateral act of the seller alone to identify and isolate the goods. So this is the meaning of when the goods are to be ascertained. And the second condition of unascertained good is when the goods are appropriated to the contract. So appropriated to the contract means it is a process by which the goods are to be delivered under the contract of sale are identified and as isolated with the consent of the seller as well as the buyer. It is a bilateral act on the seller and the buyer to identify and isolate the goods. In other words, where the goods are identified and isolated are put into the boxes or any container with the consent of the buyer. It is called as a appropriation. For example, A agrees to sell B the oil to be produced by him. So the oil was filled by A into the bottles supplied by B. It is an effective appropriation and the ownership of the oil goods passes to the buyer when the oil is filled into the bottles. Before filling it, the oil belongs to the seller, and after filling into the bottles, the belongings will be taken over by the buyer. So in this case, the buyer gave his consent to the appropriation by supplying the bottles. So this is all about the goods which are appropriated to the contract. And the next condition is about the delivery to the carrier. It means where the seller delivers the goods to a carrier for the purpose of transmission to the buyer, he is deemed to have unconditionally appropriated the goods to the contract. But the only condition is that the seller should not have reserved the right of disposal of the goods. Where the railway receipt or the bill of lading, it should be made out in the name of the buyer. It should not be belongs to the seller. The presumption is that the seller has not reserved the right of disposal of the goods. Thus, the property in such goods passes only to the buyer immediately on delivering them to the carrier, and it should not belongs to the seller. After delivery, the goods will be passes on to the buyer. So this is all about the delivery to the carrier. This is the one of the condition of unascertained goods. And the next passing of property is goods sent on approval. That means sale or return basis. So goods sent on approval or on sale or return basis means those goods in respect of which the buyer has option either to return or to retain the goods. So here the buyer only has the responsible whether to return the goods or to retain the goods. So these are all about the passing of property. The next topic we are going to see the rules and the time of transfer of ownership along with their examples. So the first rule is where the buyer communicates his approval or acceptance. That is the first rule. For that the time is ownership passes the right from the time of communication of the approval. So this is the exact time for transfer of ownership, and the example which is given for this is A offered to sell his scooter to B and delivers it to B for trial run for 2 days. B communicates his acceptance after 2 days. In this case, ownership, it passes right from the time of his communication of his approval. So the ownership will be passes the right at the time of the communication when he is approved. That is the first rule. And the second rule is where the buyer does some act adopting the transaction. For this, the time is when the act of adoption is done. That is, for that example is if A delivered some jewelry to B on sale or return basis, B pledged the jewelry with C. It was held that ownership of the jewelry had transferred to B as he had adopted the transaction by pledging the jewelry with C. In this case, A has no right against C. He can only recover the price of the jewelry from the B. So this is the second rule. And for the third rule means where the buyer fails to return the goods. Under this, two rules will becomes. The first rule is after the time fixed for return. Under this, the time is on the expiry of the fixed term. Here they have given one example. X delivers some goods to Y on sale or return for 7 days. Y neither returns nor gives notice of rejection of goods even after the expiry of 7 days. So the goods were destroyed by fire on 8th day. In this case, Y has to bear the loss as the ownership has passed on 8th day after the lapse of stipulated period, that is 7 days. So this is the third rule. Then next one is where no time has been fixed for return. In this, the time of transfer of ownership is on the expiry of the reasonable time. So here the example it has given, X Limited, that is agreed to sell a tractor to municipality on the condition that if the latter was not satisfied with the tractor, it could reject it. The municipality used the tractor for a month and a half and then wanted to reject. In this case, the property of the tractor is deemed to have passed to the municipality as a reasonable time elapsed. So these are the rules and time of transfer of ownership. The next topic is conditions and warranties. So under this stipulation in a contract of sale, the reference to goods may be a condition or a warranty. So the first point we can see condition. Condition means it is a stipulation which is essential to the main purpose of the contract, and it is core to the contract. The non-fulfillment of the condition cancels the contract. In other words, if a condition is broken, it leads to cancellation of contract. For example, A buys a motorbike from B. So here A insists that the bike should give him a mileage of 50 kilometers per liter. He prefers to have red color bike. B, a mechanic gets a bike which gives him 55 kilometers per liter but the color is green. In this case, A cannot cancel the contract since A is very particular about the mileage. It is a condition to the contract. That part of contract is fulfilled by B. However, A can ask the mechanic B to bear the cost of repainting it with the red color. So this is the condition for the contract of sale. And the next one is warranty. Warranty means it represents a stipulation which is collateral, that is, which is a proof to the main purpose of the contract. It is of secondary importance to the contract. The violation of contract, it entitles the affected party to claim the damages or the compensation from the other party. but he cannot cancel the contract altogether. For the above example, they have said the preference of red color represents a warranty. Mechanic B, he breaks the warranty in the above contract by acquiring a green color bike. Hence, A is entitled merely to demand just a change of color by instructing B to repaint it with red color and making him bear the cost of repainting. So this is the main meaning of this warranty. In short, the stipulation or the condition is a contract specific. The next topic we are going to see is the differences between the condition and the warranty. Under this, the first difference is meaning. So what the meaning of condition is, it is a stipulation which is essential to the main purpose of the contract of sale. So this is the meaning of a condition, and the meaning of warranty is, it is a stipulation which is collateral to the main purpose of the contract. The second difference is significance. Significance means condition is so essential to the contract that the breaking of which cancels out the contract. And for warranty, it is of subsidiary or inferior character. The violation of the warranty will not revoke the contract. And the third difference is transfer of ownership. Under this condition, ownership on goods cannot be transferred without fulfilling the conditions. But in warranty, ownership on goods can be transferred to the buyer without fulfilling the warranty. And the fourth difference is remedy. Under condition, in case of breach of contract, the affected party can cancel the contract and claim the damages. And in warranty, in the case of breach of warranty, the affected party cannot cancel the contract but can claim damages only. And the last difference is treatment. Under condition, breach of condition may be treated as breach of warranty, and in warranty, breach of warranty cannot be treated as breach of condition. These are the differences. And the next topic we are going to see is implied conditions and warranties. Here, in every contract of sale, there are certain expressed as well as implied conditions and warranties are present. So here the term implied conditions means conditions which can be inferred from or guessed from the context of the contract. So here some of the following conditions have given. So the first condition is condition as to title. Then second condition is condition as to description. Then sale by sample. Condition has to quality or fitness. Condition has to merchantability. Condition has to wholesomeness. And the last condition is condition implied by trade usage. Here now we are going to see condition has to title. It means in this case, seller has a right to sell the goods. The buyer can assume that the seller has a right to sell the goods. For example, if Sam purchased a motor car from Ravi and used it for 4 months, later after 6 months, the true owner came and proved that he is a true owner. In this case, Sam has to return the car to the true owner and claim the full price which is paid by him from the other party. So this is called to be as a condition as to title. And the next condition is condition has to description. It means in this case there is an implied condition that goods supplied should agree with the descriptions which is made by the seller. For example, if A has bought a machinery from B who described it to be just 1 year old, after buying the machinery and using it for a month, A came to know that it is very old machinery. In this case, A can return the machinery to B on the ground that machinery is not as per the description. That is not reason 1. So this is the second condition for this implied condition. This is the second implied condition of description. And the third implied condition is sale by sample. That means where goods are sold by any sample piece by the seller, for example, food grains, cloth, medicine, chemicals, etc. The bulk of goods which is supplied by the seller should be similar to the sample shown by the seller. In other words, where the goods supplied do not match with the samples, so the buyer can very well return the goods which is subject to certain conditions. The following conditions are: the bulk of the goods, it should correspond with the sample in quality. And the second condition is the goods must be free from any defect that is rendered from the unsaleable. So these are the two conditions which comes under this sale by sample. And the next implied condition is condition as to quality or fitness. So here generally there is no implied condition as to the quality or fitness of the goods that are sold for a particular purpose. However, the condition has to the reasonable fitness of goods for a particular purpose may be implied on the part of the seller for which the buyer wants them. So here but the goods must be fit for a particular purpose if the if the buyer has made known to the seller the particular purpose for which he needs the goods. And the second purpose is the goods are of a description which is of a course of the seller's business to supply. So these are the two purposes of quality of fitness. And for this they have given one example. The example is A bought a set of false teeth from Y, who is called as a dentist, but the set was not fit for X mouth. So X rejected the set of teeth and claimed the refund of price. It was held that X was entitled to do so as the only purpose for which he wanted to set the teeth was not fulfilled. So this is the best example for the condition as to quality of fitness. And the next implied condition is conditions as to merchantability. That means merchantability means you all know that is trade. So if goods are bought by description and the seller is a dealer in goods of that description, the implied condition is that the goods must be a tradable quality. It only means that the goods must be saleable in the market under that denomination. For example, if a watch that will not keep time, a pen that will not write, and a tobacco which will not smoke cannot be regarded as a merchantable under such names. So this is all about the condition as to merchantability. And the next implied condition is condition has to wholesomeness. It means in the case of eatables, so the goods must be wholesome besides being merchantable. For example, F bought milk from A. For example, A is a dairy owner. So the milk was contaminated with germs of typhoid fever. So F's wife on taking the milk became infected, and because of that she died of it. So A was held liable in damages because the milk was not fit for human consumption. So this is the best example for condition has to wholesomeness. And the next condition and the last condition is condition implied by trade usage. That means an implied condition as to quality or fitness for a particular purpose can also be fixed by the usage of trade. So here for example they have given X has sold certain drugs by auction, that is auction to Y. In the auction sale there is a trade custom to declare any defect in the goods, but X sold the goods without such declaration. Without declaring he is selling the goods. So later such goods were found to be defective. In this case Y can claim refund of the price because the sale without such declaration means that the goods were free from any C damages. So this is the meaning for a condition implied by trade usage. So these are all about the implied conditions. So the next topic is we are going to see is implied warranties. So we can say that implied warranty means it is a contract law term for certain assurances that are presumed to be made in the sale of products or real property due to the circumstances of the sale. So this is the exact meaning for the implied warranties. Under this implied warranties, some of the points have given. So out of that, first point is quiet possession. So the quiet possession means there is an implied warranty that the buyer shall have enjoy quiet possession of the goods, which means a buyer is entitled to the quiet possession of the goods purchased as an implied warranty, which means the buyer after receiving the title of ownership from the true owner should not be disturbed either by the seller or any other person claiming the superior title of the goods. In such a case, the buyer is entitled to claim compensation and damages from the seller as a breach of implied warranty. So this is the quiet possession. And the next one is free from any encumbrances. That means any charge or encumbrance pending in favor of the third party which was not declared to the buyer while entering into a contract shall be considered as a breach of warrant, and the buyer is to be entitled to the compensation and claim the damages from the seller for the same. So this is called to be as the free from any encumbrances. The next topic is warranty in the case of dangerous goods. Warranty in the case of dangerous goods means where the seller knows that the goods he is selling are dangerous or likely to be dangerous to the buyer, and the buyer is ignorant of the danger. The seller should warn the buyer of the probable danger, otherwise he will be liable to compensate the buyer in case of any injury. For example, C bought from a tin of disinfectant powder. A knew that the lid of the tin was defective and that if it was opened without special care it might be dangerous. So yet A did not warn C. C opened the tin in the usual way, whereupon the powder flew into his or her eyes, causing injury, held that A was liable in damage to C, as he should warn C to the probable danger. So this is called to be as a warranty in the case of dangerous goods. He should be warned in that. So the next heading is unpaid seller. Unpaid seller means when the whole of the price has not been paid or tendered, or when a bill of exchange or other negotiable instrument has been received as conditional payment and the condition on which it was received has not been fulfilled by the reason of the dishonor of the instrument or otherwise. That is called to be as an unpaid seller. So under this unpaid seller we can see some of the rights. Under this rights of an unpaid seller, the first point is rights of an unpaid seller against the goods. So here where the property in the goods has passed to the buyer, under that the first point is right of lien. Right of lien means a right to keep a possession of a property belonging to another person until a debt owed by that person is discharged. That is called to be as a lien. So here the right of lien means an unpaid seller has a right to retain the goods till he receives the price. So here some of the lien which will comes under this right of lien is he must be in possession of goods. The first point is he must be in possession of goods, and the second point is the goods must have been sold without any stipulation as to credit, or where goods have been sold on credit, the terms of credit must have expired. So here he can also exercise the right of lien when the seller becomes insolvent. So these are the two main things which comes under this right of lien. And also here I am going to say one example. Here they have given A has sold the 10 TV sets to B, and he transferred the document of title to the goods to B by courier service. But the goods are under the custody of A, ready for dispatching to booking office. Meantime, B became insolvent. In this case, A can retain the goods. Where an unpaid seller has made a part delivery of the goods, he has lien on the remainder. However, if delivery of a part is intended as a delivery of the whole, then this lien is lost. So this is the main thing of right of lien. And the next point is circumstances under which the right of lien is lost. Here, what are the circumstances which will comes under when the right of lien is lost? So here the first point is when he delivers the goods to a carrier or other bailee for the purpose of transmission to the buyer without reserving the right of disposal of the goods. For example, if A of Delhi sold some goods to Y of Bombay and took the railway receipt in the name of Y and sent the railway receipt to Y. In this case, X has not reserved the right of disposal of goods. Or else, if when the seller waives his right of lien. So these are the two circumstances which comes under the right of lien if it is lost. The next point is right of stoppage in transit. That means it is a right of stopping the goods while in transit after the unpaid seller has lost possession of the goods. This right enables the seller to regain the possession. Such a right is available to the unpaid seller when the buyer becomes insolvent and when the goods are in transit. For example, in other words, we can say goods must be neither with the seller nor with the buyer but should be in the hands of the carrier. Further, the buyer must have become an insolvent. This is the exact meaning for right of stoppage in transit. And the next topic is termination of right of stoppage. Here there will be two things will comes. This right to stop the goods comes to an end under the 2 points. What are these means? When the goods are delivered to the buyer or his agent. or when an arrival of the goods at the appointed destination, the carrier communicates to the buyer or his agent that he is holding the goods on his behalf. These are the 2 points which will come under the termination of right of stoppage. And the next point is right of resale. So here the unpaid seller can resell the goods where they are of a perishable nature, or where the seller has expressly reserved the right of resale in the contract itself. So this is the main points will come under this rights of resale. And the next topic is where the property in the goods does not pass to the buyer. Here some of the things which comes under, for example, rights of an unpaid seller which against the buyer personally through the suit for price, suit for damages, suit for cancellation, and suit for interest. So first point we can see suit for price. Suit for price means where the ownership in the goods has passed to the buyer and the buyer wrongfully neglects or refuses to pay for the goods according to the terms of the contract, the seller may sue him for the price of the goods. So this is called to be as a suit for price. And the next point is suit for damages for non-acceptance. That means where the buyer wrongfully refuses to accept the goods, the seller can sue him for damages for non-acceptance of the goods. The next point is suit for cancellation of the contract before the due date. That means where the buyer cancels the contract before the date of delivery, the seller may either treat the contract as continuing or wait till the due date, or he can file a case against the buyer immediately. And the last point is suit for interest. That means where there is a specific agreement between buyer and the seller regarding charging interest on the price, the seller can recover interest from the buyer from the due date of contract till the date of payment of purchase price. If there is no specific agreement, the seller can charge interest from such a day as he modify to the buyer. So these are all about the exact conditions or rights of an unpaid seller. The next one is assignment. The first question is differences between conditions and warranty. Differences between conditions and warranty. And the second question is discuss in detail the rights of an unpaid seller against the buyer personally. Discuss in detail the rights of an unpaid seller against the buyer personally. Thank you.